Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Mind the Mental Monday. I am so grateful to be back with you all this week. I have been under the weather over the last couple of weeks, and I actually still have a lingering cough that's happening. So if I start having a little bit of a coughing fit, please forgive me, but I was not going to not do Mind the Mental Monday because I'm actually feeling much better. I actually have energy that I didn't have over the last couple of weeks, which is why I didn't move forward with it. But I am feeling so much better. And thanks to everybody for your prayers. And so yeah, it's good to be back this week with Mind the Mental Monday. Um, so a couple of weeks ago, I started talking about because, it was Valentine's Day on February 14th. And the Monday before that was the last time I did Mind the Mental Monday, and I wanted to talk about I talked about loving yourself because a lot of times during Valentine's Day, just like other holidays, can really, for some people, is an exciting and wonderful holiday, and for others, not so much because perhaps they don't have that special loved one that in their life at the time. Maybe they're not getting the candy and the flowers and the engagement rings and yada yada yada. Um, and so sometimes it is a day that people actually end up depressed because they are, you know, don't they haven't found that, the love of their life. And I really wanted to us to sort of lean into as corny, as cheeky as it might sound, like loving yourself and really leaning into the fact that I mean God made you so specific. Like that's your first love. That is your first love. That is the love of your life. The fact that your creator made you, made me specifically. I like that's love right there. Um, so I really wanted us to kind of lean into that. And I had planned the following week to sort of follow it up, talking more about loving you, loving yourself. And so I'm going to stay with that because I think that we should not only spend one day a year focusing on loving or showing love to our loved ones. We shouldn't just sort of focus one day out of the year, talking about love more than talking about it, actually doing it. Anybody can talk about love. Anybody can say the words, I love you, but love is an action, and love is shown by people's actions in your life. And sometimes what we do in order to say that we are loved or to try to hold on to love, sometimes we allow people in our lives to just kind of walk all over us and treat us any old kind of way because we want to be loved. And we think that if we make some other decisions, if we create some boundaries, if we speak up for ourselves, if we say what we honestly are thinking, we think that we're going to lose love. But love doesn't operate like that. And so if somebody that you are connected to decides to become upset with you for choosing yourself, for creating boundaries, for loving yourself, if they get upset with you for doing that, then that's not love. And you should not feel like you have to put up with just nonsense to say that you have a love, that you have somebody in your, a loved one in your life. And I think that people, because of the way that we are in our society, we sort of view people, we measure success by a lot of different ways. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have success. And one of the ways, besides having a lot of money, people measure success in our society is if you have a partner, which is not a measure of success. It's not a measure of love. It's really not a measure of anything. And I think that a lot of times, women in particular, I think, really put a lot of pressure on themselves to like have somebody in their life. Like they just have to, in order to seem like they're somebody or to be somebody that they have to, um, they put up with a lot of stuff, just to say that they have somebody in their life. And I think that that is just not something that we should do. Um, we are all worthy of love. We are all worthy of receiving true love. And if our first love is our Creator, then certainly our second love should be ourselves. And so I, want, you to really grab on to the notion that one, you are worthy of love. Your Creator created you specifically down to every cell in your body, um, with intention. That is love, and therefore love yourself. And when you love yourself, then you can much more easily spread that love to others in your communities, in your neighborhoods, in your churches or mosques or synagogues or wherever you places of worship or whatever the case might be for you, you can much more easily and freely spread that love once you really internalize love for yourself. So what I like to do tonight is to really go into some practical ways for showing love toward yourself. Practical ways to love you. And so grab a pen and some paper or your phone, the messaging in your phone, not the messaging, the notes, your little notes box in your phone, or whatever the case might be, to just kind of take down some notes, especially if you are in a space where you feel like you really could love on yourself some more. One of the reasons I think I probably shared a couple of weeks ago, or I've definitely shared, over time on Mind the Mental Monday, is the way that we love ourselves is generally directly tied to how we received or felt like we received love in our formative years. Um, it's based on how you were spoken to. It's based on how you were received by other people. If people genuinely received you like in a happy way and smiled at you and it felt like they were accepting of you, it felt like love and you grab onto that. But if you were more often than not greeted with like disdain or greeted with a frown or spoken down to or spoken negatively about, then you more often than not internalize that, and that turns into self-loathing, and then you start to think things like, well, if I were deserving of being loved, then I would have been. If I deserved being loved, then I wouldn't have been abused. I wouldn't have been teased the way that I was. I wouldn't have been talked about. And so a lot of times we might internalize the ways that we've been treated um, as not being loved and not being worthy of love. And I just really want anybody who is in that space of not feeling worthy of love, let alone not feeling that you are loved. I want to really express the importance of knowing your worth, knowing your that you are indeed worthy of being loved, and that you are worthy of loving yourself wholeheartedly and full throttle. You are worthy of loving you. So let's talk a little bit about the need to love yourself. And what I want to do, what I'd like to happen with this episode is I'd like to this episode to sort of move you from move self-love from like just an internal awareness. So last time the things that I talked about was really more of a sort of internal awareness about loving yourself and the need to receive self-love and really examining how you actually feel about you, right? It was more of a self-examination. But today I want to move to external action, actual practical things that you can do to really grow that seed of love inside of you for yourself. To really grow that seed of understanding that you are worthy of being loved and you are worthy of loving yourself. All right. All right. So the first thing I want to talk about is something that we talked about a lot, and it's something that you will hear talked about on like a lot of different platforms. And you will hear just talked about in our culture and in our society, is this idea of setting boundaries. And I know we've talked about that like over and over and over again, but just like, as a minister, one of the things that I learn and understand about reading and studying scripture is that when things are repeated, if they're in the same story or in the same several verses, it is to draw attention to the importance of what is being stated, that it is something that is a point that needs to be driven in. And so if you want to drive a point home is something that is worth, when you're telling a story, it's like, the method is to say it again, and then say why you said it, right? And so it's important to establish boundaries. Why might setting boundaries for yourself be a way towards self-love? One, boundaries are a way to honor your mental health. Everybody thinks that whatever they're doing is the most important thing, right? And there are a lot of times where, people will call on you, right? Because it is the most important thing. In their mind, it's an emergency, but it's not really your emergency, right? My one of the things my doctor's office, my doctor's office, they have a sign up that says, it says, your lack of planning is not my emergency. Like, just because you didn't plan well, just because have something going on and you didn't plan things right and you didn't sit down and map out whatever it is you need to do. Don't call me all in a hurry and like well, we need to do this now. Like, and so everybody thinks that whatever they're doing is the most important thing. Like everybody. But just because it's an emergency for me, because of whatever I didn't plan or whatever the case might be, that doesn't, I have to realize that that doesn't make it an emergency for somebody else. And then I have to, when somebody else calls me with their stuff, that's an emergency to them. I have to say, listen, I have to be able to set the boundary of, listen, I understand that that's important to you right now. But right now, I don't have the capacity to manage what you're going through because I am currently managing something that I'm going through that is important to me. Um, and so sometimes you have to have those kinds of difficult conversations, and sometimes people are going to get upset with you, because, you're not doing for them what they think that they need you to do. But what I've learned about people is that they'll figure it out. They will figure it out, right? Because if God forbid something happened to you, it's the same thing I think about like at work. Like, if God forbid something happened to me, they might shed a tear, maybe two. Some of them will shed half a tear or none. That position will get refilled and somebody else will do the job. Like they figure it out. And in that transition period, they'll just figure it out. And it's the same thing. Like people will figure out what they need to figure out for themselves. And so you don't have to feel like you have to be the one who is helping people manage themselves. People have to learn how to manage their own issues. And it does not have to be you, and it does not have to always be you. So it is a way to honor your mental health because when you just are always the one that's just always available to everybody for everything, it wears on you. And one of the things that one of my team members talked about, which I applaud her for, Minister Ebony, is is that one of the things that she does occasionally is just unplug. Like just don't stop answering the phone. Stop sending the text messages. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like just put the phone down. And I would encourage all of us to do that. I'm sorry, y'all, my chair keeps like falling down. It's getting on my nerves. Um, so I would encourage everyone to take those kinds of stances of, yeah, you don't have to answer every phone call. And if it's an emergency, they will call back, they will leave a message. Um, they will figure it out with or without you. If it's something that they need to figure out, they will do it. They can do it. Um, and sometimes the reason that we don't set boundaries is we sort of like the idea that people have to come running to us, or we feel like they have to come running to us for everything. We like the idea that somebody is dependent on us. We like the idea that we have some level of control over those people. But in the end, it will wear you down. And so setting boundaries is definitely an act of self-love. It is also a way to stop self-abandonment because sometimes when we are so busy, like doing everything for other people, when we're so busy, you know, managing other people's problems and putting out other people's fires, it is because it gives us an out for dealing with our own stuff. It gives us an out for confronting some things that we need to confront within us. It gives us an out is it because it's kind of this almost the same thing as cutting. People who cut themselves, I've mentioned this before, the reason that they cut themselves is because the pain that they get from the cutting helps to distract them from the mental pain that they're in. So they would rather focus on having some little bit of physical pain so that it can distract them from the mental pain that they're dealing with. It keeps them from having to confront that mental pain and focus on another kind of pain. And so sometimes dealing when we are so engrossed in other people's lives and other people's issues that they might have going on, when we're so engrossed in trying to always help somebody else, it's really not even so much about helping them. It's more about distracting yourself from yourself. There are times that we do things to distract ourselves from ourselves. But if we want to get to a place of really loving ourselves for who we are, we have to dig deep and get to know ourselves, first of all, for who we are. And we can't get to know who we are or what we're capable of when we're always trying to help somebody else figure out their stuff. And so I'm not telling you to not help other people. I'm not saying that. I can't say that because I am one who, if people reach out to me and want to talk to me, I'm a life coach. So it's kind of what I do, right? Anyway, and even in my career in public health, it's what I do, is to help other people. So I'm not saying, and in ministry certainly, right? So I'm not suggesting that you just don't help other people. What I'm saying is don't do that to the neglect of yourself. Don't just allow yourself to be so available to everybody else all the time. One of the pieces of advice, it's really nice. So I had three big brothers and a dad growing up. And one of the pieces of advice my dad gave to me about dating when I got to an age of, and particularly when I was getting ready to go away to college, right? And he knew I would probably, I'd be dating, right? As most young people do. But one of the pieces of advice he gave to me, he said, don't always be so available to men. Like if you're going out with somebody, even if you're dating somebody, don't always be available. Every time they call and say, "Hey, let's go out," sometimes have something else to do. Sometimes say, "No, no, I'm doing something else tonight. I have other plans tonight." And what he was getting at is you are not to be just on some man's whim. Like have a life of your own. Have do things outside of that relationship, and then both of you should be doing that really. But don't allow somebody to have that level of control over you, essentially, is what he was sort of getting at. And it's the same thing for when we are just always there for just anybody else, even not necessarily in the dating, but we have to know what we have capacity to handle in the moment. And there are times where, people will hunt us down because, they're used to us being able to be that ear, be that one that they can talk to and, be that one that can maybe help them, get through some things. But there are times where we need to kind of get through our own issues, where we need to really do that work in ourselves. And then when we do that work in ourselves, then we're able to do that work. We can are much better equipped to help somebody else get through their work, right? And so that's what I'm saying. And so it's we can rather than abandon our own selves, it's best that we confront and learn who we are. It is also a way to show other people how to treat you. You don't have to, when you put your foot down and when you finally, and y'all know my one of my favorite things besides intentional, my other favorite thing to say is no is a complete sentence in several languages. That's my other favorite thing to say. So when that first time you say no, yeah, that other person is gonna be like, oh, it's gonna give them a jolt because it's gonna be like, wait, they ain't never said no before. Well, now they saying no, and they might even get upset. They might even want to start an argument with you. Um, but understand this, that when you get up the bonus, there's a whole episode about saying the power of saying no. Can't remember the exact title of it, but it's on one of these Monumental Mondays from way back. And we go into that whole discussion about saying no, right? So go back and check that one out. But you teach people how to treat you. And so as you're teaching people how to treat you, you want to teach people that you are one who requires respect. Respect of your time, respect of your space, respect of how you believe, or your beliefs. You require respect. No, I am not available. Oh, but can you please? I'm not available. No, no explanation needed. I can't do it. I can't do it this time. So, um, showing people how to treat you and understanding that that no is a complete sentence in several languages, and no, because it's a complete sentence in several languages, it doesn't require any explanation. You don't have to explain why you're saying no. You don't have to. Now, if you want to, in certain circumstances where you feel that it is actually warranted, then have at it. Go ahead and explain, whatever the reason is. But you don't have to. They don't need to know why you're saying no, because whether they know why you're saying no or whether they don't know why you're saying no, you still the point is the answer is no. I'm not doing it. And that's that on that. So um all right. So and to segue from that, that's a good segue of not having to explain your no, because here are some signs that you are not loving yourself well. And one of the biggest signs that you're not loving yourself well is over explaining yourself, over explaining why you can't do it, just overly, and being overly apologetic. One of the things that we do a lot is say, I'm sorry. Sometimes for reasons that we don't even really need to be sorry. It could be just, I don't know. I don't know a good example, but just, oh, I'm sorry for like nothing really. Um, and so, just constantly feeling like you've got to just do the most work to explain and over explain and explain again why you said no is something that we have to really get out of. Listen, I'm just not able to do it. And if that person is somebody who is special to you, then they should be able to understand that. Now, on the flip side of that is when that person say no to you, then don't get mad at them either. Be okay with somebody's no. Give people grace when they got to say no. Stop getting mad because somebody can't jump to your whim and jump to what's important for you. It works both ways. Is what I'm saying. Because I believe that that is a part of self-love too, because when you can love somebody else enough to give them grace, when you give grace, you get grace. When they say no to you and you are, oh, okay, it's okay. All right. And then you can get the same thing back. Maybe not always, but it works both ways. It should be a mutual benefit, not just one-sided. That's another way of self-love. Here's another sign that you're not loving yourself well, feeling anxious after saying yes. Have you ever felt that way? Have you ever somebody asks you something and before you even really think it through, you've said yes, but after yes, now you're thinking it through, and now it's like, oh, like, why did I say yes to that? And then you start thinking about all that goes along with that yes, right? Because yes, let's face it, it's a three-letter word, but often yes is packed with a whole lot of stuff. Have you ever thought about that? It's a little word. Yes, Y-E-S. It's only three letters, but it's packed. It can be packed with a whole lot of stuff. Like what is actually coming with that yes? So don't be so anxious to say yes, right? Um, it's okay to take a breath and say, um, let me think about it and I'll get back to you. And give yourself some time to think through that yes. Like know what that yes really means. What it really what's really involved with the yes. Because it can mean a whole lot of steps, right? To get to the full fruition of the yes. So mind your yes. You know? Like you mind the mental, mind your yes, because saying yes too quickly can have you having all kind of panic attacks and anxiety and like, oh my God, like what do I have to do to get to this? Yes, I gotta, oh, this means that I've gotta, I've gotta get a new outfit. I've gotta, yeah, it can mean a whole lot of things, right? I gotta get in touch with all these people. It just mean a lot. And so knowing what that yes entails, will help you to not feel so anxious after saying yes. So give yourself time to think. Don't let anybody rush you into a yes. Marketing people have really, I mean, they got that down, right? If you people who are do those marketing calls, um, which yes, I hang up on people. And I have it's no shame in my game. I will hang up on a telemarketer. And I've been a telemarketer before, right? But if after I said no, you still trying to talk, I'm just gonna hang up. Why? Because I also, having done telemarketing one time a long time ago in my life, um, I know that there's a script, and I know that the teaching is if you keep a person, if you're able to keep them on the phone for a certain amount of time, the chances of you getting to a yes from them becomes more and more and more possible. So it's like the longer they keep you on the phone, the easier it is to get to that yes. I remember years ago, my brother and sister-in-law, and we took our families we went to Florida for a vacation, and we took the kids to Disney World. Now, we signed up for one of those timeshare presentations because we were going to get some free tickets to Disney World. So we do the timeshare thing, and we stand our ground. It's like, no. It got to a point where I literally, and I'm probably one of the calmest people in our group. But even I got to a place where it's like, what part of no don't you understand? No. No, I'm not. We're not buying a timeshare. Give us the tickets. We sat through the presentation like you told us to. With the tickets. They were so upset. They were so upset with me. But we got our tickets. But you know what? We said, you know what? Next time we just gonna go and we'll just buy our own tickets because this was really crazy. They kept us for hours, so we earned them tickets. But that's one of those things where you find yourself getting locked into something that later on it's like, why did I do this? Like, what was I thinking? Have you ever been there? I have. I definitely have been to a place where I said yes to something and got locked into something, and then it's like, wait, what am I doing? How is this even benefiting anybody? Like what was I thinking? So take time to think. This is what Mind the Mental is about, thinking about your thinking. Take a beat, take a breath, take several breaths if you have to, walk away from it, really think it through before getting to a yes, so that you're not like now all anxious about how am I now going to get out of this? It just brings up a lot of anxiety. Another sign that you're not loving yourself well is resenting people that you keep rescuing. Oh my goodness. Woo! That one right there. Do you have people in your life like that? Like that you are constantly rescuing them. Guess what? You're not really rescuing them. You are enabling them. Every time they get into some kind of trouble and you bail them out without, saying no and giving and showing them that they do indeed have the capacity to figure it out for themselves, every time you're trying to run to their rescue, um, you're not helping them. And I have to say that to myself. And it's hard, especially like if it's your child. Like if it's your adult child, like there are times where you have to just say, and it'll hurt, but how can they learn how to fend for themselves? How can they learn how to get themselves out of situations if you're constantly rescuing them? It might not even be your child. Sometimes, it could be a sibling, it could be a, a good friend. It could be a cousin. It could be anybody, right? But understanding that, when you feel like you're rescuing people again, you're not rescuing them. You're enabling them. You're enabling them, and what you're telling them is, if I keep making, if I keep um doing the same thing, expecting a different result, then this person is going to get me out of it. And so I'm gonna just keep trying it. I'm gonna keep trying. I'm gonna keep doing it this way, and I'm gonna keep getting this result. Because if I get this result, then I'm gonna call whoever you are, whoever I am. I'm gonna call Benita, and she's gonna get me out of it, right? And you get people on a cycle of doing that. That is not helping them. um, Teaching them, helping them to develop strategies for themselves, and how they can, get themselves out of whatever situation they get themselves in because of the decisions that they made is the way to go. But constantly rescuing the same person or people over and over and over and over and over again, it is not helpful to them or you or your mental health. There's that coughing fit. And I didn't bring water. Um, the another sign that you're not loving yourself well, we talked about this before, is staying silent to keep the peace. I talked about before about oh, what is it? What is it? What is it? What is the term that I can't even remember the term that I use. I didn't coin it. I got it from one of those sort of self-assessment things. But it essentially it was saying, to about being honest. The importance of, even when you're afraid, even when you feel it might hurt somebody's feelings, to be honest with how you feel. And that has really helped um me in different situations that I have found myself to, to no longer, just keep silent about it, how I feel about it, how it impacts me, to keep the peace, because it's not keeping peace, because you're not at peace when you do that. When you're not honest, when when you're silent and you just keep holding things in, and you don't release them, you're not keeping peace, because you're not keeping peace for whose peace are you keeping? Who are you keeping the peace for? It's not for you, because you're not at peace, more often than not. So, learning how to be honest. And you can be tactful now when you when you're honest. You can say it with some tact, and you can say it in love, but you can say it firmly, without hesitation. I said what I said, and you can be okay with that. All right. Um, so here's a question for you to reflect on, in terms of these signs that you're not loving yourself well: over explaining your decisions, feeling anxious after saying yes, resenting people you keep rescuing, staying silent to keep the peace. Here's the question: where are you choosing comfort over self-respect? And if we are to be honest, what we think of as comfort is not really comfort. Because when we allow ourselves to be disrespected, when we give away ourselves, um, to keep the peace, we find ourselves internally twisted up in all kind of knots. That is not comfortable at all. That is discomfort. That is not peaceful at all. And so, what are some areas where you need to have some honest conversations? Even if it's an honest conversation with yourself, which is where it usually starts. Have that honest conversation with yourself. And then if there are others that you need to have an honest conversation with, if it's that person that you keep rescuing over and over and over again, if it's that person that you feel like you've got to over explain your no, you have those conversations. If you need those conversations to be mediated, find someone who will be subjective. I mean, not subjective, objective. Who will have an objective ear, who won't side with either side, but who will hear each side clearly, and can maybe help you in those conversations. If you need that, there's nothing wrong with that. Just make sure it's somebody that both parties can trust. It could be, in maybe it's an outside mediator, maybe it's a therapist that neither of you, that can just do something like that. Somebody that you don't really know personally, either of you, that can help you work, wade through those waters. Um, all right. So, the next thing is healthy boundaries without guilt. That is the hardest part. Like, once you start to utilize your boundaries, once you start to set those boundaries and actually keep them, you can start to feel guilty about, and especially with certain people in your life, that is like used to, you sort of, they're they're kind of used to you foregoing your boundaries for them, right? Because of whatever the relationship is that you have with them. And then when you start exercising those boundaries with them, it's kind of like, wait, what's going on? And then you start feeling guilty, like it's like, You start trying to explain yourself and over explain yourself again, getting back to that, like of, I'm sorry I didn't call you back, but and all these kinds of things. Like, well, no, I just needed a minute. I'm sorry, y'all, about this. I don't know why this chair keeps going down. Um, and so, having healthy boundaries without guilt. Um, Here's some things to understand about that. And again, these are practical ways to begin that self-love journey. You don't owe everyone access. And that's, like I mentioned earlier, like you don't owe everybody access. Everybody does not have to have access to you. And they don't all even those that you are okay with having access, they don't have to have access 24/7. They don't have to have access all the time. Have those times where it's like this is my time. Unapologetically. This is my time for me. And, turn off the phone, put it on silent, put it on do not disturb, you know, um, with D&D, do what you need to do to preserve you and to love on you. You don't have to respond immediately. But a funny thing, my sister, I talk about her a lot. I know but I just she knows that like if I call her and she doesn't answer the phone immediately, and this is what I do. I start out with one of her either because she still has a landline. So I'll call the cell phone. If I can't get her on the cell phone, I'll call the landline. If I can't get her on the landline, I call back on the cell phone and leave a message that time. Like, and then if I don't hear back from her in a certain period of time, I'm like texting my brothers, like, have y'all heard from have y'all heard from them? And then I'll text her, be like, hey, I don't want anything. I'm just checking on you. I just want to make sure you're okay. I haven't heard from you. And then she'll call back. So that is her like finally exercising her boundaries. And I love Deb, I know you're gonna see this. I love you for that. I'm glad you're doing that. Um and I know that I'll hear back from you eventually. But I'm baby sis. And so, I'm like, wait, you're not supposed to have these boundaries for me. Those boundaries for other people, not me. But yes, boundaries are for baby sisters too. So, but it can be hard, to be like, I don't have to respond immediately. If it's a real emergency, they will blow up my phone. And then I'll know it's a real emergency. Or put some kind of signal, like if it's a real emergency, put, some kind of code, text 911. Like this is really an emergency, so people know it's a real emergency. Um, you can change your mind. I said yes, and my yes is yes, usually, but as I've thought through it, it's really not, I'm really not capable of doing it and it, doing my best at it, whatever the thing is. You can change your mind. Now, don't do that all the time. Don't make a habit of that, right? Like, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Um, you know, but there are times where you have to change your mind. You have to do something different. Um, all right. And so prepare your script. Go ahead and do as a part of your self-work, prepare your boundary script. Let's call it that. Your boundary script. So what's a boundary script? I don't have the capacity for that right now. That's a good one. That doesn't work for me. I need time to think about that. right? Those are just three script starters, and you can come up with your own. But have something in your pocket that will help you as you're in your until you get to the point where you're comfortable just saying no, period. All right. Um, all right. As far as loving yourself in relationships, love is patient and kind. It doesn't boast, it doesn't tear up somebody down. Like if you're in a relationship you where you feel like you're being suffocated by negativity, by somebody always like putting you down, that is not love. And when you allow that, um, that is not self-love. When you love yourself, when you love you some you, and I like the last time, I want you to be able to get in the mirror and look at yourself and say, I love me some you, and mean that. But when you allow other people to disrespect you and to pull you down, and I mean, understand that that is not love, and that is a relationship that likely needs to be cut. That is some pruning that needs to happen for you to move forward. So healthy love requires mutual respect. Again, it's a mutually beneficial relationship. It's not one-sided where one person is doing the most and the other person is doing nothing. It's not always 50-50. Relationships aren't always 50-50 in certain areas of the relationship. But that's not what I mean. But the relationship as a whole is mutually beneficial for both parties. Um, it requires emotional safety. You should be able to um go to that person and be vulnerable and not be afraid of being vulnerable, not be afraid that your business is going to get out in the street. You that you shouldn't have that kind of fear. And it also requires space to grow. We are all growing and evolving. And even when we're in a relationship with someone, both parties is growing and evolving, and we have to learn how to do that together in a way, again, that is beneficial to both. So, you know, if loving you, hear this, if loving you costs you your peace, it's not love, it's obligation. And love is not an obligation. You shouldn't feel obligated. Love is something that happens naturally. You love a person unconditionally, not because of what they've done or what they're doing and so forth. Like, you know, that is love. If you feel from somebody else like, they're saying they feel obligated to say I love you because those are just words and not action. That's something that we got to think about, right? In this self-love journey. So here's your call to action. Your self-work. Set one boundary for next week, for next week. Set one boundary. Honor one need and say no without explaining. And I want you all to put in the comments, like, I want y'all to do this homework assignment, and I want you to tell me how you made out. Were you able to set one boundary, and how did that go for you? You can say what the boundary was if you want, but like, just let us know, like, how is it going? Did you honor one need? What was that? How did you feel? Say no without explaining. That one I really want to hear back from y'all on that one. If you were able to do that, to say no without explaining, I mean, I want you to let us know. What did that do for you? Was it freeing for you? Like, how did it make you feel? Um, so I hope that this series, two-part series on love, in this love month, has been helpful to you. And I hope that everyone on February 14th and every day before that and every day after that has discovered new ways to love yourself, love your creator, love you, and let that love then spread to everybody else that you touch. All right. All right. So, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. I will see you all next week, next Monday, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook Live. And you can also catch my subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have pinned my YouTube channel to my Facebook page and to my Instagram page. So go ahead right now and subscribe to my YouTube channel and go back and check all of those Mind the Mental Mondays that you may have missed in the past. We're getting closer to episode 100. We're getting close to our 100th episode. I'm so excited about that. So I'm gonna have to think of something really special to do on our 100th episode of Mind the Mental Monday. So yes, we're gonna do something special. Remember, March 21st, I will be having a webinar on talking about rewriting the song in your head. And I hope that you all will join me then. It'll be at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on March 21st, which is a Saturday. So I hope that you all will plan to join me, and I'll be having get the flyers out for that in the very, very near future. All right. So God bless, and I hope to see you next week.